Six Nations 2023, folks. England and Scotland, the rivalry resumes. It is the second game of the Six Nations 2023. We are going to go through some of the lineups, some of the kind of recent history and predictions, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how this one maybe going to pan out. Obviously, as I said, these two teams have a bit of traditional rivalry. The Scots have had a decent recent record over their neighbours from south of the border. But if you're looking at world rankings, it's the English who slightly edged the Scots. It's 5th against 7th, and it's made more interesting by the fact that England have obviously got a new coach in Steve Poortvliet up against the coach in Gregor Townsend, who's been around for what seems like bloody forever at this point. So, yeah, there's a lot of talking points about this game, but you guys can let us know your thoughts on who you reckon might be going to win it. We will start with England, and it's obviously Steve Poortvliet's first team naming. He's without a few of his players through injury, but he's still named what looks to be a pretty strong lineup, and he seems just genuinely happy. Like, when you look at him at his press conference, he seems happy to be there. I'm not sure, if he does too many more press conferences, he'll be still as chuffed as he seems to be, but he seems to be a man enjoying his work. Ellis, Genge, Jamie George, and Kyle Sinckler, that's the front row. That's pretty familiar. I believe Jamie George has recently kind of passed some concussion protocols, so it's good to have him back available, and he's been kind of given the all clear. Maro, Itoje, and Ollie Chessum is the second row. Johnny Hill was one of the recent kind of trimmings of the squad. I mean, under Eddie Jones, it was Maro and Johnny Hill more often than not, so that's a little bit of an indication of a change from Steve Poortvliet, but we'll see how Ollie Chessum goes. He's certainly a pretty busy player compared to the big lump that is Johnny Hill. But we'll basically see how he goes at line-out time and whatnot. We'll have to compare what different impact he has. Lewis, Ludlam, Ben Curry, and Alex Dombrandt as the back row. It's pretty bloody useful. Alex Dombrandt gets a crack. Obviously, Billy V's not in the squad, so it's a chance. I mean, it's been a bit of a revolving door one with Billy V, Sam Simmons, and Alex Dombrandt. So I don't think you can go too wrong having Alex Dombrandt there, especially if you're going to play Marcus Smith at 10. Sometimes those guys get a pretty good read on each other. Ben Curry in the spot that's usually filled by his brother, but by all accounts he's been having a pretty good season with Sale. And, he brings a pretty equal level of work rate as his brother, so good chance for him to impress. And then Lewis Ludlam, who kind of seemed to float in and out of the squad under Eddie, is back to get the job done at 6. So it's still a pretty good looking fullback, if a little bit different from what we would see from Eddie. Van Poortvliet and Smith is the 9-10. I guess the main kind of talking point is not so much 9 and 10, it's 10 and 12 with Marcus Smith playing alongside Owen Farrell. When Owen Farrell was named captain by Steve Poortvliet, it was going to be a question, is he going to play 10 or is he going to play 12? Because he's been playing some pretty bloody good 10 for Saracens, and he seems to be another guy who's just enjoying his rugby. Like, Owen Farrell is often a guy who doesn't have the most jovial expression on his face, but recently, any games I've seen him playing for Saracens, he genuinely seems to be having a good time, which is, as I said, a little bit out of character, but he's been picked at 12, and they asked him about it in the press conference, and Steve Poortvliet basically just said, that he likes the fact that Marchant, who's picked at 13, works so well with Marcus Smith, and that Owen's played well at 12 in the past, and listed kind of various times he's played 12. So, yeah, he's backing Marcus and Owen as being the right combo for this game, rather than necessarily for kind of every game going forward. The back three is pretty exciting. Ollie, Hassell-Collins, Max Malins, and Freddie, Steward. They were also singled out by Poortvliet in the press conference, basically saying Hassell-Collins is power and speed, and he is proper excitement machine, isn't he? Malins' ability to come off the wing, and then Steward's high ball defensive play, and then his finishing. I'm not sure about his defensive play as much. I seem to remember his tackle percentage when I looked at his stats last year was pretty awful, but certainly a great high ball guy and finishes some good tries. So maybe I'm doing a disservice, but we'll see how he goes up against the Scots. I mean, the bench, Jack Walker, Mako, Vunipola, Dan Cole. It's good to see Dan Cole back. I don't know why. I mean, it didn't feel right that his last game was that World Cup loss for England. Isiekwe, Earl, Youngs, Lawrence, and Anthony Watson. I'm really pleased for Ollie Lawrence because another one that in the few games of the Premiership I've seen him play, and he's pretty much impressed in every single one. He's just been an absolute devastating unit of a man. So I guess Tuipulotu is one of the guys who's noticeable in his absence, but I guess part of the reason is the 10-12 factor with Farrell at 12 and then wanting to play Marchant at 13 to link up with Marcus Smith is perhaps the reasoning behind that. Steve Poortvliet said that when he told Manu he wasn't picked, he just went back and trained really hard, and that's kind of what he wants to expect to see from his players. So, yeah, that's the England lineup. By the way, if you want England rugby gear, England rugby still down on the selection. Get yourself some gear just in time for the Six Nations. Happy days. For the Scots, I mentioned that Gregor Townsend has been in charge for a number of years now, so we kind of know what to expect from him, but he's also pulled the trigger on a few different positions, which maybe is a little bit, I guess, surprising. Pierre Schoeman, George Turner, and Vunipola now, that's the front row. Obviously, Xander Fagerson is not quite yet fit. They said he's very close, otherwise he's pretty much had a lock at tight head. Ritchie Gray and Grant Gilchrist are the locking duo. So it means my man Johnny Gray is down on the bench, my tackling machine man that is Johnny Gray. I did see him play for Exeter the other day. I can't remember if Johnny Gray's coming back from an injury, but I certainly saw him play the other day and scored a try for Exeter Chiefs. So hopefully he comes on at some point and just tackles the house down. But I mean, Gilchrist and Ritchie Gray is still a pretty good locking duo. Jamie Ritchie is captain at 6, Luke Crosbie and Matt Fagerson are 7 and 8. So Luke Crosbie is maybe one of the kind of breakthrough names, I guess, because we're used to seeing Hamish Watson usually fill that number 7 jersey, but Gregor Townsend basically said that Hamish Watson, I think, has had one game back since coming back from injury, so not quite ready for test match, but Luke Crosby's been playing well, so he duly gets the nod. Likewise, Ben White is another guy who's been in cracking form, which I think is pretty true. Been seeing him play for London Irish. I think one of the Champions Cup games I watched, and then they played Harlequins the other day. Yeah, he's been in great form. I don't know if they said if Ali Price is injured or not, because Ali Price is not even in the 23, and he's had a lock on that number 9 jersey, but I think on form, Ben White, it'd be hard to pick anybody else, and he scored a try in the game against England, the reverse fixture last year, so yeah, I'm pretty pleased for him. Finn Russell gets the nod at 10. I don't know if that was ever in doubt. Hopefully him and Gregor Townsend are playing nice, because I do think he adds something a bit more than what you'd like to see from anybody else when he gets a crack. Sione, Tuipulotu and Hugh Jones, 12 and 13. I think a lot of the focus is going to go on Hugh Jones' return, because that guy's been on the outer of the Scottish squad for a wee while. But Sione Tuipulotu is another one. He just seems to be enjoying his rugby, man. He's playing with all kinds of confidence, putting kicks through, taking carries, and I don't know. He just seems to be a real weapon at the moment, so very pleased for him. And then Kyle Steyn takes the spot of Darcy Graham, who is obviously unavailable. Duhan van der Merwe is going to be looking to bust some tackles on the left wing, and then Stuart Hogg, the big boot of his. Familiar face there at fullback. The bench-wise, Fraser Brown, Jamie Beattie, Simon Bergen, so that's a fair bit of experience there. Johnny Gray, like I mentioned. Jack Dempsey will want to add some punch when he comes on. That seems to be his role under Gregor Townsend. George Horn, Blair Kinghorn, and Chris Harris. So it's unusual to see Chris Harris benched, but Sione Tuipulotu and Hugh Jones attacking-wise, man, that's a pretty exciting midfield combo. So very pleasing to see how these guys might go. They've been training in Spain, apparently, so looking to get a bit more game time or practice time outdoors is what he said. I guess it's a bit more, a bit warmer anyway. Sun probably sets a bit later down in Spain. So yeah, we will see how the Scots go with a bit of extra training time together away from the normal kind of home base. Recent history between the sides, it's more in Scotland's favour. It's one of the sides that I think Eddie Jones, I know he had a pretty good record with England, didn't he? But his recent record against the Scots was not great. Of the last 5 games, you got 3 Scottish wins, including not last year's 2021's one at Twickenham, which was a real tight affair. That was only 11 points to 6. There is one English win there in Murrayfield back in 2020. You got the previous game to that in 2019 in Twickenham, which was that 38-all draw. I remember that one pretty distinctly, where Scotland were seemingly dead and buried, came back, took the lead, England equalised. That was a crazy game. But since that 38, all game, the games have been largely pretty tight. 13-6 to England, 11-6 to Scotland, 20-17 to Scotland. So pretty tight. So there doesn't seem to be that much between the sides. In recent times, the average score, 20 points to 17 to Scotland, which funnily enough is the same scoreline we had last year, man. So yeah, I mean, last year England had more possession and territory in that game at Murrayfield, but it was a great example of that Scottish defence. They had tackled like 94-95%. They were just, I mean, there's only 2 tries in the whole game, including that one from Ben White, one from Marcus Smith. But yeah, real tight one. So we'll see how things go. England are favourites at home with the bookies. 8 points is what the bookies have got. 10 points is what the Rugby Forecast algorithm says. So going a little bit against that recent form guide of Scotland having the edge and of it being kind of like a 3-5 point game. They're saying more than a try for England in this one. So it is on at Twickenham. It's a 4:45 kickoff local time, which makes it 5:45 in the morning for those of us in New Zealand, which is slightly more palatable than the game before it. It is on ITV, which happily for you guys in the UK is free. For those of us outside the UK where it's free, you can use a VPN to jump on ITV. I'll put a link down to Express in the description if you want to jump on ITV service. Just set your server to one in the UK and jump on ITV. ITV's got the rights to the Rugby World Cup as well, so if you're going to get a VPN for watching some rugby now, it's not a bad time to do it. Paul Williams from New Zealand is the referee. He's not bad. He's not my dad's favourite referee, but yeah, he's all right. We'll see how he goes. Hopefully he's not too pedantic and lets the game flow a little bit, and we're not talking about him come the end of the game. You guys let us know your thoughts. Do you think England under Steve Borthwick at home are going to be too strong for the Scots, or do you think the Scots, with their recent good record over the English, are going to retain the Calcutta Cup? You guys let us know your thoughts, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.